Aneurin Donald and James Kettleborough both hit the highest scores of their first-class careers on a slightly truncated first day of Glamorgan's LV County Championship encounter with Gloucestershire in Bristol. Heavy overnight rain meant that there was a delayed start of an hour at Neville Road. Glamorgan batting first after winning the toss, with Kettleborough and the returning Jacques Rudolph seeing out 14 testing overs in the morning, in which only 22 runs were scored. Before the players were off because of another shower early on in the afternoon, Rudolph had made 17 of an opening stand of 38. One which was ended when the South African was LBW to David Payne, who had probably just about calmed down after delivering that cup-winning final over at Lord's on Saturday. What a day that had been for Gloucestershire, trophy winners for the first time in more than a decade after that unforgettable conclusion. Maybe they were feeling the effects as Kettleborough was spilled in the slips. Kettleborough made the most of that moment as he and Colin Ingram began to establish a partnership of note for a side which has struggled in recent weeks, although a third-place finish was still a possibility for them if they could win a match against their neighbours here. These two were able to add 71 runs for the second wicket, Ingram making 30 of those in an hour at the crease, 60 minutes filled with some lovely cricket shots, which had his side on top at this very early stage of proceedings. This was Kettleborough's 18th first-class match, most of those with Northamptonshire, and he was at just the 650 of his career off his 82nd delivery as the 22-year-old carved James Fuller through the offside for his 10th boundary. Running between the wickets was not something he was concerning himself with too much. But he soon lost Ingram at the other end, a drive off Fuller being edged into the gloves of Gareth Roderick behind the stumps. The cut shot was in use a lot throughout this day, which suggests that the home attack missed their line and length at times, and taking full advantage of that was Donald, an 18-year-old who is just beginning to establish himself in this Glamorgan team. The same can be said of Kettleborough, who survived until tea and in doing so went past his previous best first-class score of 73, made 4 Northants at Lord's against Middlesex last summer. With a total on 161 for 2, he headed to the break with 78 runs to his name. Kettleborough would have been dreaming of a maiden ton, but having added just 3 more to his tally, he nicked off to Payne, leaving with his team on 165 for 3. In next was Chris Cook, who had the keeper's gloves in this match for his team after Mark Wallace's remarkable run of playing in every single championship match for his county since June 2001 was over. 230 matches in total ended due to a torn calf muscle. And talking of keepers, substitute James Bracey nearly pulled off a stunner after he replaced Roderick, who was off with another hand injury. Cook had taken over from Wallace in the second innings of last week's game when the Glamorgan legend pulled up while batting, but before he could even think of putting on the gauntlets on this occasion, there were runs to be scored on a pitch which, in spite of its greenness, was playing pretty well. Donald certainly enjoyed batting on it, and he took on the threat of left-arm spinner Tom Smith by using his feet expertly in order to push the ball through the gaps. While it was Cook who, for the most part, was dominating the scoring at this stage, Donald rarely missed out when given something to go after. And that had the youngster at what was the third first-class 50 of his career in just his 6th match. 70 balls had been used up getting this far, from which 8 boundaries had been found. Next in line was to better the 67 the lad from Swansea struck as a career best against Essex in July. Cook's half-century occupied only 54 balls and was reached when he hit his 8th 4, this one off Fuller. It had been an excellent counter-attacking innings from the 29-year-old South African-born player who was on his way to adding a 3-figure partnership for the 4th wicket. You could certainly excuse Gloucestershire if they weren't at their very best. The intensity and excitement of that win at the home of cricket at the weekend was bound to take something out of them, as no doubt would the celebrations. These two took their stand to 101, those runs being made in only 17 overs. Cook then would have been disappointed to get out for 65 as he picked out Payne at long leg off Fuller. He left with his side handily placed though on 266 for 4. That brought in David Lloyd, fresh from his career best of 92 last time out, and he had a lucky escape when this top-edge pull landed in no man's land. So Lloyd and Kettleborough had both hit the best scores of their careers in the last week, and to prove that the future is bright for Glamorgan, now so did Donald. Whatever was thrown at him, he was equal to it, and before more rain took the players off late in the day, he'd taken his boundary count up to 12. The players came back out for a final 5 overs, Donald moving into the 90s, while Lloyd played a few shots to maintain his good form of late, Glamorgan having one of their better days in recent times. Lloyd headed to the pavilion with 29 runs to his name. Donald, meanwhile, will have a nervous night, no doubt, as he will resume his innings on the second morning on 91, and that's been made out of his side score of 338 for 4, those runs being made in 77 overs.